everybody. Welcome to part two of some video tips, a little bit of an advanced boot camp for you here, where we are going to explore some of what we started yesterday. So if you were with me yesterday, I'm Evan Abrams. I'm still Evan Abrams today, but welcome to part two. Yesterday, we were extracting subjects from video using After Effects, using a bunch of keying and rotoscoping effects. Hope those were good for you. I hope you were able to apply them to some footage of your own, get onto Adobe Stock, grab some of those footages, extract some things. Now today, we're going to be putting them together. We're going to be combining them. So we take them apart, we put them back together. That's the joy of collage. So thanks for being with me for that. Thanks everyone in the chat. Good to see you here. Steve, Misty, Umacorn, hello. And of course, Cody Bear, holding it down in the chat for us. This is going to be a good one. If you have any questions, do let me know in that chat. If you're watching us over on YouTube, come on over to Behance. We want to see you in the chat there. Ask your quandaries, and we'll try to help you out. Ron, hello. This is going to be a good one. And yeah, it's part of a rich, full day of programming on here. So we're only here for half an hour, so we better get into it. Let's jump in. So let's have a brief little preview of where we're going. We've got a nice little window down here for my face to hang out so I don't interrupt the rest of the interface. But we've got maybe some handshaking going on. Maybe that could be a delightful thing to do. We isolated some hands to get them shaking. It's nice and surreal. We could enjoy that. I do a little trick where I put an asterisk at the start of everything I want to export so that I can just call up all my exportables by searching for the asterisks up here. How about a lovely bouquet of flowers? This is a big intertwining piece here. We'll just kind of switch that over to half so we can render that quick here. You can see just heaping spirals, bushels of flowers moving around there. So hopefully that is an enjoyable thing to observe, using a lot of time remapping to make this happen for us. And it's a time lapse already. So that's what's going on. How about some doves? We can get some birds flying around here. Drum roll, please. We have a whole bunch of them just floating on, flying on by the camera here. So those are the types of things that we're going to be creating today. And also this kind of horrifying frame of birds. We're going to get into that as well. So without further ado, let's start at the beginning, right? The first thing that I want to kind of bring to you here is this idea of creating assets that are going to loop. I think that's the first thing. Once you've isolated them in space, we want to try to isolate them in time as well. So let's just back up to where things were at yesterday. So if you've got your handshaking going on here, right? We've got our handshake nice and isolated. This has many handshakes happening, 3 of them over the course of the whole thing. They shake this way, then they go away, and then they shake that way, and they go away, and then they come back and they shake this way, and they go away. We only really need one of those, and we're going to loop that over and over again. So in order to do this, I would recommend, we've got keyed handshake as our composition here. So if we just come into my chroma key here, we have keyed handshake. So we've done the step of extracting stuff at this point. And what we want to do is just find the time that's going to work for us. So let's see, they're clear of the frame here. Let's just square that up. And so with nothing selected, I'm going to hit the asterisk, and that's going to set a little marker on our timeline. I'm going to scrub through. When are they clear of the frame back here? Right there. So let's go ahead and set one there as well. So we put 2 lovely markers on our timeline, right? So now I'm going to take keyed handshake. I'm going to create a new composition, hit the new composition button. And let's do, I don't know, 1080 by 1920. Nice vertical frame for us to work with here. I'm going to take my keyed handshake and I drop it down into our frame here. Now, one thing that's really lovely about this, if I just scrub through, you're going to see, hey, look at this. There's a couple of markers that are hanging out here on this composition. That's fantastic. What I'm going to do, just so we can see it a bit better, is I'm going to take this comp here and let's make it a bit longer. Let's give ourselves like 30 seconds of this to enjoy. All right. So we're going to grab keyed handshake. I bring that down here. And oh boy, I still haven't to zoom out on our timeline. There we go. Now we can observe them. So here are those two in point and out points. And let me just scale this down to be a little bit more like that. Maybe I'll scale it up so that it's kind of like there. Get that shake right in the middle. And I want to remap the time so that I only have this segment and it repeats forever. So I'm going to go Layer, Time, Enable Time Remapping. And you can also do this by right-clicking Time, Enable Time Remapping. And by default, as soon as you do this, we get two keyframes and we reveal the time remapped property. And so if you come down here, you're going to see at the start, if we observe our time remapped property, you're going to see, oh, it's 0, 0 here. And at the end, it's 12, 17, the whole length of the clip. If I scrub through to here, I'm going to set a keyframe that corresponds with where that little marker is. I'm going to set one with where that little marker is. And so I've set like little goalposts in here. And I'm going to actually I'm going to delete the first and last of those. Because the only data I'm interested in, the only frames I'm interested in are these ones here. And so I'm going to take those, pull them back to the start of the thing here. And let's see, maybe we want this handshake to only last 2 seconds or something. I could grab this and I'm going to pinch it together. And you can see that now I've shortened that up. If I want to make this loop, I simply need to hold down Option, click on the stopwatch, and we're going to type something in here. I'm going to type loop out. And with loop out selected, by default, After Effects is assuming that I've written cycle in there. But let's write it in just so that we know. We're going to be looping out to the end of the composition, to the end of this frame, these two keyframes, or whatever keyframes at this point, and it's going to just repeat them over and over and over and over again. And so now we can enjoy handshake and away, handshake and away, handshake and away. They just keep going, 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 and they keep doing that. That's created a little loop for us. Now we could use other forms of loop out, and we will, but for now, let's go ahead and refine this a little bit. Let's play with our movement here. And instead of just having these points for the start and end, it's going to give us more control if we scrub through and we find, there we go, this is where they've clasped together. I'm going to set a keyframe for there. I'm going to scrub through. I'm going to find when they break apart. Okay, they're starting to break apart like here. I'm going to set one for that. And quite frankly, we might need a pause in this. So a time when they're not, on frame, they're just going to hang out for a bit. So I'm just going to move ahead 10 frames, shift page down gets me there. And I'm just going to copy and paste this final keyframe here. So that what it's actually looping for us is hands come together, hands shake, hands come apart, and then pause. And then I'll just remap this a little bit. So let's see. Let's go ahead 10 frames. Adjust that keyframe there. Let's go ahead 10 frames, adjust it here, move ahead a little bit, adjust this one, move ahead a little bit, and we'll adjust this one. So what we've caused is a bit more of a more surreal feeling movement, very unnatural, very kind of staccato, but having this regular rhythm to it has taken us out of the realm of reality and into a kind of surreality, which is what I encourage everyone doing. Okay. We've got this thing controlled in time. Great. Let's add it in more places in space. So one of the first duplicating effects I want to talk about here, we're going to use reptile. I love a good pun in just about every form. Reptile is going to repeat this layer a number of pixels away. So let's say expand down. And as I expand down, you see, boop, we are adding that. Now I know the original layer is 1080 pixels tall. So if I expand this down by 1080 and I expand it up by 1080, I'm going to end up with 3 copies of this, which is pretty great. You can see we could slide that around. It seems to be taking up the right amount of space. And right now, it's just repeating itself over and over again. If I come into the tiling, I can say, hey, why don't you flip it horizontally? So every new copy, flip it horizontally. That'll give me something like this. And that's especially useful for me if I wanted to do something like, if I wanted this to be just a nice big film strip of these. Let's expand it down even more. Let's see, let's just multiply these by 2 maybe. Let's expand this one, multiply that by 2, right? So The more we want this to replicate, maybe we want to add more variety, we could do it this way. So let's see here. Let's go window, align. Give me my align panel. Stick that in here. And we are just going to get this into the middle center. Scale that back up like so. And we've got some hands coming out and shaking. Fantastic. We've nailed it. Now, I'm just going to cut ahead to how I put together the final version of this, so you can see all of the various handshakes going on. It's really just 2 copies of those keyed handshakes coming out and doing that same thing. We have offset the timing. So this one's time remapped, this one's time remapped, just like we saw. And then I've just offset them a little bit. I've pulled this layer like so that they're happening at opposite intervals, and so they exchange over that, right? Now, if you want to have a look here, the other thing we're doing is using an offset. This offset is giving this illusion of scrolling up and down. So if I just solo this layer really quickly, remove the curves here from it, and you see that the offset is just shifting, it's shifting where the layer is at using the offset. And what's great about this is as the layer slides off one end of its frame, it comes back on the other side. So that gives us this nice rolling film strip. We could do this using position or anchor point, but using offset gives me just a little bit more flexibility. It's a little bit easier to kind of figure out where everything is. And I'm setting fewer keyframes on the actual frame itself. So we're just modifying how the thing looks rather than where the thing is, which gives me a little bit of flexibility to change the position naturally, like so. Now, Umacorn, say like the background is a little bit of a topography background that I like to put together sometimes. It is a little bit of an effect sandwich where we are going to be going, I'll take you through it. We apply some fractal noise, then we blur the fractal noise, then we posterize the fractal noise, then we find the edges of the fractal noise, find the edges of those, double find edges. Then I blur that out just a little bit and apply a curves to it just to try to crispify this up a little bit. The joy of this kind of thing, especially if you're doing collage work or you're doing any kind of a thing that requires a repeating background, the fractal noise, and repeating over time, mind you, is we can keyframe the evolution and we can cycle the evolution. So if you have a look here as we zoom out, we are cycling the evolution of this, and then when it comes back around the other side, it's seamless looping. So always, fractal noise is our friend. That's why it's the free score on the E.C. Abrams stream bingo. You'll see me use fractal noise in just about every project in some capacity because it generates visual randomness, which is perfect for us. Okay, so handshake, I think we've covered that one. I think we've really nailed how that one goes. The final little bit on this was to add a posterized time to it, just to kind of harmonize the frame rate a little bit and to make it feel a little more cartoony. Okay, shaking hands, done. Let's talk about this bouquet of flowers or bouquet of flowers. Now, these are, I think, Gerberas. And if we twirl in here, you can see, you know, this is just a nice isolated flower. I did it. I isolated one flower. And one thing that you may want to do, especially if you're isolating something like this, is keyframe the position of it a little bit to try to get, if the stem is kind of moving around, I've used the position to just try to get that a little bit more in the center, right? And yeah, hopefully that is helpful. But what do we do with it next? Well, I wanted to arrange them around in a bit of a pinwheel. So let me show you how that would go down. I'm going to take, let's see, maybe we, what is this? This is flower opening 2, right? I'm going to create a new composition, 1080 by 1080, and let's call this the pinwheel, right? We're just going to pinwheel these things around. So again, we're going to bring out flower opening 2, drop it down here. Let's go ahead and make it smaller. I'm going to, of course, take off our proportional grid, and we are going to, let's bring this anchor point down to the bottom. Let's turn off our transparent background. And if I wanted to get this thing, I want this to be in kind of the middle center. So 540 by 540. And we are going to layer, time, enable time remapping. And let's see, maybe around here, I think it's full enough. So I'll set a keyframe there, and we will, again, we're going to loop that out, but we're going to loop it out not using cycle, but using ping pong, which means, if we come in here, that rather than starting over, it just runs backwards and then forwards again. So we end up with this kind of opening and closing. And I'm going to pinch this together so that it happens quite a lot faster. And now it's looking nice and bizarre. So sunrise, sunset with that. Okay, now what I want to do is arrange this around in a circle. So you would think I'm just going to duplicate one, turn that around. Let's duplicate that, turn around, duplicate that, and turn it around. And as these things kind of interact with each other, one thing that unfortunately happens to them, you can kind of see that this one has to lay on top of everything. And I don't necessarily want that, right? I might want each one to seem like they overlap each other as if we kind of fanned them around in a three-dimensional way. So in order to get over that, what I've done is made use of a three-dimensional quality. So we're going to look at our toggle, our switches and modes. We'll make all of these 3D. I'm going to call up their rotations here, and instead of rotating them using the Z rotation, sorry, I'm going to rotate them around using their orientation. So we're using that orientation to orient them around like so. And let's see, this would be 270 like that. Then I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to use the Y rotation on them to tilt them away from each other ever so slightly, right? So maybe like 10 degrees, 9 degrees is enough for that. And you can see that now this one, right, is under here, but over here. So we're getting these things kind of interlacing with each other in a way that is, in my mind, a little bit nicer. So now we've got this coming out like so. Now, if we wanted to stagger them over time, remember we have those keyframes on their time, right? And what I want to do here is go 1, 2, 3, 40 frames, right? I'm just going to tap U to bring up only their keyframes, call them open like this. And what I want to do is just offset each of these layers a little bit. So I'm going Option Shift page down to offset them like so. And so with them all offset in this way, you can see now they are going one after the other around in a circle. Right. So we're able to create this kind of a little unit, we would say. And with that unit, simply taking that pinwheel and adding more and more pinwheels. So if I take that pinwheel, put it into a new comp, right? And I'm going to make another one, shrink it down, rotate it a little bit, make another one, shrink it down, rotate it a little bit, and so on like this, right? They're all happening at the same time. Well, let's just offset those in time a little bit like this. So now they're sort of following each other around in a spiral. Now we can just keep massaging that more and more until we end up with the bouquet. I've probably spelled this wrong. Something like this. Oh, I love this. I think this is a dahlia that is growing and wilting and then returning. And you get this kind of really large pinwheel happening as you do this kind of a thing. So definitely check that kind of a thing out. And I know we're coming into the finale here. So one tip I want to say about this, when you are compositing these things over top of each other, I use a brightness and contrast to bring the front layers to make them a little bit brighter and to make the back layers a little bit darker so that we get this kind of dimensionality between them. Even though they're duplicates of the exact same thing, this will help you get a little bit more pop off of each other. Okay, one more to go. We need to put a bunch of birds around. So we are going to make a mess of birds, a nice square composition here. And let's see, what do I want to use? Let's use the parrot, this wonderful parrot. We're going to bring the parrot out. And I've already marked the parrot up here so that I can go layer, time, enable time remapping. set those time remapping points how we want. Loop out, ping pong, right? So we can go like that. I just want to make sure, yeah, there we go. So we are going to set our time for this. And the parrot doesn't do a whole lot, but just a little bit of movement helps, right? So I'm going to bring the anchor point of the bird down a little bit like this, and so that I can kind of move them around. Now, if you saw the preview frame of this, it looks like an absolute nightmare of birds. And what I do to achieve that is I like to make a new adjustment layer. And on that adjustment layer, I'm going to use the mirror effect. So we bring the distort mirror onto here. Now, there are many ways that we can do this. You could use CC Collida if you prefer, but I prefer the mirror, at least in this case. So step one is I'm going to bring the reflection center into the middle center of the comp. And with the angle currently, right, we're creating these halves, right, like this. So we got two birds. I'm going to move them a little bit like this, or maybe I want to go transform, flip horizontally. So now it's like the birds are emerging like this. So maybe we do something like that. Now we might say, Evan, that's pretty great. Make some more birds, please. Well, good, I shall. So I'm going to take the mirror, I'm going to duplicate it, and I am going to adjust the angle on here. So let's just adjust that to 45 degrees. So now we have a cut going across this way. And now if we just go ahead, I'm going to render the preview of this, because the movement of how the bird is kind of moving, merging into these mirror lines is pretty helpful for us to actually have a look at. All right, so let's see here. Clunk, clunk, clunk. I've not purged my cache, so that's why it's taking a little bit of time to cram more things into that cache. But there we go. Yes, so there we go. We've got this bird. Yes, that's looking nice and horrifying. I like this. I can scale it down a little bit. What I really want to do is sort of have the eyes enmesh with each other a little bit like that, because that's nice and strange. Now, one flip, two flip, three flips, and with this third flip, duplicating the mirror again. Negative 135, like this. We've now completed our Ouroboros around the side. Yeah, a bird eating its own tail here. And you can see we've now created something quite horrifying out of our original footage. But we're not done yet. No, not even a little bit. The first thing I want to point out is you might end up with a little bit of a sliver over here. That's a bit of a technical whoopsie, but I am just going to use a transform effect on top of those mirrors, and we're just going to scale it up. Just 0.1 or something, just to make that go away. And I'm just going to duplicate the parrot. I'm going to move a copy of the parrot out here, maybe make it a smaller parrot. And remember, this little triangle here is basically all that we have to play with to get something happening. So let's go transform. Let's flip horizontally like so. And let's see, maybe we'll just try to fill in the corner a little bit with a parrot, right? You can see, oh yes, they're in every corner. They're everywhere. Let's duplicate that again. Let's see, let's go transform, flip that horizontally again. Let's move this kind of into the middle center. Now, if we didn't have our adjustment layer over top, it would look like this, right? And it would look quite bizarre. You know, these things don't line up with each other at all. Because we are flipping it around, right, we're really just taking what's in this lower triangle, replicating that over and over and over again. So that is how I created that type of a thing. I want to just dive into that frame of birds here so that we can observe it. And I want to show you just one thing really quickly here. And that is, actually, I don't really need these layers, so I'll delete those. That is observing the time remapping that has happened to these birds. One last thing, I promise. So in order to add a little bit of variety, you see I've got some of them whose time remap is looping at a period of 1 second, some that loop at a period of 2, and some that loop at a period of 3. This is a 6-second composition, which means that all of those are factors of the whole amount of time. Therefore, it's going to work out. Hopefully this has worked out for you. That's a great segue to bring this thing to a close. I hope this has worked out for you, and I hope that you have enjoyed learning this kind of thing with me here today. I'm Evan Abrams. This has been part 2 of our kind of boot camp here, assembling all the things that we took apart yesterday. So I hope this has given you some interesting ideas, some inspiration. I want to see the kind of things that you make. So, why don't you post them up on the Discord, and that would be terrific, so that we can kind of see what's going on over there. But yeah, I want to see what you're doing. Anyway, I'm Evan Abrams. I got to run. There's more going on here on Adobe Live, so stick around for that. And stay kind, be kind to each other, stay creative, and I'll see you all around the internet. Bye for now. Oh, I need to go hit that one.